So one really big thing I've learned after about almost a decade of being obsessed with productivity, trying to get straight A's, working really hard, being productive, is that often when our days go completely out of control, you know, those really bad days where for me, I would literally I would lie in bed all day, I would just scroll on my phone. I would know in my mind, it would keep looping in my mind, like I've got to get up. I've got to do that assignment. I've got to do this work. I've got to start now. I've got to start now. But I feel completely frozen. I feel completely stuck in bed. So one thing I've realized is often those days don't happen because of some huge catastrophic event. Often they happen, and there's this book called Atomic Habits that talks about this. It happens because of a tiny pivot point in your day. So it's not necessarily that the whole day it goes out of control. It might be the second you get home, you decide to sit down and scroll on your phone for 5 minutes, and that 5 minutes becomes 10 minutes and 20 minutes, etc., and you've wasted the whole night. Compared to if you got home, you put away your phone, you began studying, and your night would have taken a completely different trajectory. So often the trajectory of our days is not determined by this huge, massive event, but actually these tiny little events throughout the day. That's why I think, in my opinion, morning routines are so important, because they set off the pivot point for the day. If you start your morning really, really well, it puts the trajectory, it puts the momentum for the rest of the day. If you start off your day really, really bad, you know, maybe scrolling for an hour or something, it's much harder to get out of that momentum. A lot of our habits, a lot of our productivity is largely to do with momentum. So in this video, I want to give you 5 or 6, I don't know, micro habits that I've developed over the years that actually, they're tiny little habits that actually give me huge compounding results. So I'm going to go through these here. Actually, I'm just going to add a quick one here that I thought of. So these are just a couple I've got here that are very interesting that I'm going to go through. Okay, the first micro habit that I want to go through is, by the way, I studied engineering in university, and I'm 26 now. So I've been working on productivity for the past 10 years. I literally went from a student who was like failing all my subjects to getting straight A's and being able to be productive to create this YouTube channel and everything. So these are the habits that I use to this day that I've discovered over the years. I'm going to go through the top 5 here. I might be missing something, but okay, the first habit that I want to go through is to create a daily plan. So there's this concept called decision fatigue, where as you go throughout your day, your brain is constantly making decisions. You're sitting there, you just finished lunch and you've got a decision. I can play video games or I can study. Throughout the day, your brain is constantly making decisions. And every time you have to make a decision, you experience a little bit of what's called decision fatigue, where your brain gets a little bit tired. So one way to combat, and the thing is, if your brain gets tired, it eventually can't make any decisions, and it just defaults to the easiest thing. So when you've been fatigued from decision fatigue, you're much more likely to lay in bed and scroll on your phone. So one really good way to combat decision fatigue is to simply get into the habit of 5 minutes every day just planning your day. And I'll tell you exactly how I do this. So what I like to do, and I do it in different ways. I've experimented with doing it on my phone. I've experimented with doing different ways. And every time I stop doing it, my days become a lot more chaotic. They're not as efficient. But when I do it, I really, really notice the difference. So here's what I do these days. I literally just open up I've got a notebook here. I literally just open up my notebook and I get a blank page. So this is what I do here. I just write the date at the top of the page so I know what the date is. And I literally just write my 1 to 3 most important tasks of the day. Now it's tempting to do a to-do list, but what I've realized with a to-do list is it seems so long that you never actually get the to-do list done. And the to-do list ends up just getting pushed to the next day, if you know what I mean. It's like an infinite to-do list. You know, you have 10 items on your to-do list. You only end up doing like, I don't know, maybe 2 or 3 items. And then the rest of the items get pushed to the next day. So I get into the habit of literally, ideally 1, but maximum 3 priority tasks every single day. Because it really gets me to ask myself this really, really important question. What is the most important task that I can do today, which pushes the lever forward the most? Because often out of the 10 things on your to-do list, there's only 1 thing that's actually really super urgent that you need to do. Let me just close the window. It's getting kind of loud. So I always ask myself this question every single morning. what is the most important 1 to 3 tasks that I need to do today? So today, I have 3 tasks, but 2 of them are very, very short. My main task here is to actually just record videos. I like to batch record, so I plan to record a couple videos. So that's the first thing. I put the priority tasks down there, and it really concentrates your energy. It really lets you know, okay, this is what I'm doing today. So you don't need to make decisions. Maybe you've got like 4 subjects. Each subject has like 2 assignments. You don't need to decide what you need to do that day because it's clear. This is the task I'm going to do. And the fewer priority tasks you can have, the better, because it allows you to concentrate your energy on one task. Okay, the next micro habit that I want to mention here. Let's see if I can get this book up. Okay, the next micro habit I want to get into is a little bit similar, but it's this concept called a default move. Now, this might seem a bit weird, but basically what I realized is whenever I had nothing to do, whenever I had a bit of downtime, whenever I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, I would always default to going onto my phone. That tends to be my default. And so what I did ahead of time was I experimented. I was like, okay, look, what if instead of straight away going onto my phone, what if I tried to do something else? So at first I tried to do Anki. Okay, if I've got a bit of downtime, what if I just build this habit of pulling out my phone and going onto Anki? That seemed cool at first, but that was a bit difficult because there was always resistance. Like, if I'm feeling tired after school and I'm laying on my couch, the last thing I want to do is pull out Anki and start doing cards, right? So that wasn't going to work. So I tried, okay, what about I read? What if I just carry my Kindle around with me, and whenever I have a few moments where I don't know what to do, what if I make it my default move to pull out my Kindle and begin reading? Again, same problem, it didn't work. So the default move that I found to work was, if I have no idea what I need to do, I try to simply get into the habit of doing nothing. Like literally putting everything away and just staring at my wall, or even better, I like to stare out of my window. Literally just sit here and stare out of my window. I noticed that that's a default move that has a lot less friction to it, because literally just sitting there and doing nothing is pretty easy, pretty straightforward. But it's much better than defaulting to scrolling onto my phone. So if I notice that I'm not sure what to do in that moment, I haven't made a decision, I'm a bit lost, a bit confused. If I notice that I'm tempting to go onto my phone, then I try my best to actually just sit there and do nothing, or just stare at my wall. And I try to just create some space. Because when you sit there and you stare at your wall, or you sit there and you stare outside your window, you're much more likely to make a better decision. Because you're going to sit there for a bit and you're going to be like, look, I was tempted to scroll on my phone because I felt like I had nothing to do. But when I sit here and I think about it for a while, actually, I've got an assignment due this weekend, so that's what I should be doing instead. So that's a big one. Creating some sort of default move. Now, if you've got a better default move that you can think of, please let me know. But this is what I've managed to figure out. I literally just sit there and I just stare at my wall. Now, obviously, easier said than done, because the habit of pulling out our phones and scrolling is so deep. It's going to be difficult to implement this default move. And I'm not perfect at this either. But if you can implement this default move 1 out of 10 times when you notice you have nothing to do, I guarantee it's going to at least give you some benefit in your day. Okay, the next tip I want to give you here is a little bit related. It's to simply get it. If you find you constantly scroll on your phone, if you find you constantly get distracted by your phone, this will help you. Get into the habit of putting your phone away. Now, I've tried throughout my entire life, through the past years, when I've been working on my phone addiction, I've tried to delete the apps. I've tried to use willpower to not use my phone. I've tried the black and white mode. I've tried all these apps, Opal or whatever, and they never really worked for me, because it was just so easy to pull out your phone and go onto Instagram. It is literally so easy to do that. It takes 0 effort. So it never worked for me to use willpower or use these different tactics. So the one thing that really helps me a lot, 2 things. First of all, go watch my video that I uploaded a couple days where I go in depth about my phone addiction and how I actually worked on overcoming it. But a big thing that I can give you, like the biggest habit, the biggest hack, is just to get your phone away from you as much as possible. So the book Atomic Habits talks about, if you want to break a habit, you should make it difficult. So if you're trying to quit weed, literally throw your weed away. If you're trying to, quit something, literally get rid of it if you can. And so when it comes to overcoming your phone addiction, we can't really get rid of our phones. You know, maybe there's this trend online where people get a dumb phone, where they like get like a Nokia or something and they try to use that to replace their phone. Maybe you can do that. But if you actually need your phone, the best thing you can do is just build in the habit of putting your phone away. So something I try to do these days is I try to ban the phone from my room, because I find my room to be a hot zone. Whenever I'm in my room, I'm much more likely to scroll on my phone. So I try to build in the habit of just leaving my phone outside my room. And I noticed that cuts my phone usage by at least like 80%. Another thing is when I'm out of the house, I don't put my phone in my pocket. I put my phone in my bag. Deep into my bag, I put my phone. Now, if I'm meeting someone, of course, I'm going to pull out my phone and contact them. But by the way, another benefit with that I learned is when you put the phone in your pocket, the heat actually affects your testosterone. I'm serious, go search it up. But if you're interested in optimizing your testosterone, this can also be a nice bonus. But the point I'm trying to make here is I just put my phone in my bag. I literally just put my phone deep into my bag. So there's a lot more resistance to pull it out and start using it. But when it comes to using my phone, my room is my weakness. This is the point where literally I'm way more likely to use my phone. So I try as much as possible whenever I remember to just leave my phone outside. It makes me much less likely to use it. Another big thing is whenever I would like go to dinner with some friends or go to meals with my friends, I would just leave my phone at home. Like if you're brave enough to do this, this is huge. Literally just leave your phone at home. Because I would realize when I was at like a social event or something, and I was feeling a little bit uncomfortable, not feeling like I wanted to interact with people, I very easily just reached for my phone and just opened the weather app or something, opened the settings app. But when I didn't have my phone with me, I was forced to face that discomfort, and I was much more likely to begin interacting with the people around me because it was better than just staring into the distance. So that's another big thing. Leave your phone at home, leave your phone in your bag, whatever you can do to create that distance to your phone. Okay, the next habit I want to give you here, this might seem a bit weird, is get into the habit of, okay, I'm going to mention this very briefly, but get into the habit of talking to camera. So one of the biggest habits that have helped me in my life is talking to camera, like I'm doing right now. It literally, when I first started trying to talk to camera, it was so awkward. I was so embarrassed to do it. It was so painful. But getting into the habit of talking to camera at least 5 minutes a day will literally skyrocket your communication skills. It will literally help you learn, because when you teach something, you yourself learn it better. So when you're studying, you can get into the habit of just trying to teach the material out loud or to camera. So communication skills are one of the most important things that I wish I learned during my university days, because it doesn't matter how much value you have. If you're unable to communicate it, then it's pretty much useless. Okay, not always, but being able to communicate it will help you a lot more. So this habit of talking to camera, I've done almost 200 YouTube videos now. This habit of talking to camera has literally changed my life. And I've got hundreds more videos that I didn't even upload. So if you can get into this habit of just talking to camera, you will skyrocket your social skills. You will skyrocket your communication skills. You will learn better because you'll get into the habit of teaching. And it's just such a good habit to get into, in my personal opinion. So that was a little bit of a side note. That might not be a micro habit, so I'm going to give you a bonus one later. But the next one I want to give you is get into the habit of going outdoors. Now, this might seem like a weird one, but one big thing I've noticed when it comes to working on productivity, when it comes to self-improvement, is your environment literally affects your behavior so much more than you think. Let me give you an example. So the other day, I was sitting in my house and I was feeling so unmotivated. I was literally like lying in bed. I didn't want to get up. I was feeling like, what's the point of doing anything? I feel so lazy. I was feeling a bit, purposeless. I was like, what's the point of all this? Not like suicidal or something, but I was just feeling zero motivation. I was feeling not like doing anything. And I called my friend Tushar, and he knew what I was going through. He knew that I was sort of trapped in my house and that the environment of my house was keeping me trapped in there. So he pushed me in a call to leave my house. And what I noticed was as soon as I stepped outside my house, as soon as I left my house, my motivation started coming back. And the rest of the day ended up going really, really well. So the point I'm trying to make here is I'm still trying to investigate this. I'm still trying to learn this. But your environment affects you a lot more than you think. That's why I try to take it super seriously to keep my room clean. Because I've noticed with a clean room, I'm much less likely to procrastinate. I'm much more likely to be motivated. So the biggest habit you can get into if you face these problems is to simply change your environment. So when I used to live in a house with my parents, I would often study on the dining room table, or I would study in another room. Because my room, I think this is what it is, but your room, probably over the years, you've been doing so many bad habits in your room, right? Like going on your phone, whatever, social media, maybe you do drugs, whatever it is, maybe the hub. And so your brain associates that room with those habits. And so it creates this negative association around it. Now, I've tried to work on this. I've tried to maybe see if it's possible to improve how your brain perceives your room. And I have been able to make a bit of progress on it. But the biggest thing I can tell you is just change your environment and see how it goes. So these days, I try to just leave my house. And it helps me a lot. Or just go to a different room. So that's another habit you can get into. Okay, next one I want to tell you is get into the habit of testing yourself frequently. So I always talk about my videos about active recall, about how, testing yourself is the most scientifically proven best way to study, the best study technique there is. But a habit that I've noticed that a lot of top students do is they very, very frequently test themselves. So most students, when they leave class, they just forget about the material. They go home, they do whatever. But top students will spend a couple minutes in their minds just testing themselves over the material. And this is a habit that I've learned to develop. For example, whenever I read a book or something. When I come to the end of a section, or when I come to the end of a chapter, mentally in my mind, I try to just test myself on the chapter. I'm like, okay, what did I learn today? Okay, today I learned that social proof is this and this and this, and it's like this and this and this. And when you can get into the habit of, after learning something, just sort of testing yourself on it very, very briefly, you will find that you learn a lot better. So, okay, that's it. Those are some micro habits that I like to use throughout my day. Let me know what you think. But apart from that, go check out this video now. See you later.